the Indie Pod podcast. I'm your host, Super Joe Pardo, on this Wednesday, April 1st, April Fool's Day. That apparently is, I've only seen a couple of April Fool's jokes going around. Very, very few. Apparently, pretty much everybody is not having it this year. And I kind of don't blame them because, today's been a pretty somber day in America. And it's probably one of many to come. So let's have some fun. Let's talk about resiliency today. My guest today is she wanted to bring a topic of resiliency into podcasting, and I was all for it. Let's talk about that today. But before I get down that road, let me tell you about my sponsor, Podbean. They are an easy and powerful way to start podcasting. They give you all the tools you need for a successful podcast, such as unlimited podcast hosting, podcast distribution, monetization options for podcasts of any size, and live stream podcasting capabilities. Sign up today at www.podbean.com. That's PODBEAN.com. All right. So I'm going to bring in our guest. If you could all do me a huge favor and give a warm welcome to Jeni Wren Stottrup. Woo!
Hi.
Did I say it right again?
Hello.
I
Yes,
right.
you did. You did. Two times in 1 week. You got it right. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That R is
awesome.
that invisible R is actually starting
R.
to disappear from your name. It's amazing how that happens.
Yeah, it's a wild one. So here we are.
Yes. So Jeni, why don't you, before we get into the whole topic of resiliency for podcasting, why don't you give some background about yourself and your podcasting journey?
Yeah. So I've been doing podcasts somewhere around 7 years. And it started when I was performing. I was an artist and I was recording my record, and I was also putting on festivals. So I had put on a benefit show and done media for it. I was writing for some papers, and it was like, hey, I was approached to be interviewed for some of these like internet shows, which was the podcasting that was going on at the time. And I really enjoyed doing it. People were like, you're really great at this interview stuff. And I was going on radio shows too. And so I was approached to kind of get into that. And that was 6 years ago, 5 years. This would be 5 years that Gritty Birds launched. I ended up launching in a show, just kind of answering the questions about what it means to be able to survive in the music industry. It's a really challenging one. It's a very challenging one. I'm going to say that again, just because I think I said it twice. And it's where when I went 10 years ago, I moved to Portland. I'd been in the music scene up in Seattle, and that was when the crash happened. And the crash really changed my perspective. It changed my life. And then I got a job, and I got laid off in 2 years because the school wasn't handling funds correctly. And then, there's just been all these like massive setbacks over and over. And I would get into something and I'd be like, Mom, the music stuff's happening, and this is the year. And then this podcasting thing came, and I'm like, I feel like this is it. I don't even know why, but it ended up being the one thing that really just kept rolling. And so I went, because I'm a teacher, I started teaching podcasting really early, because at that point I'd been doing media for a long time and working in recording. So it just was a very natural evolution, and started producing podcasts for other people almost right away as well, at the same time that I joined the radio station. And now Gritty Birds is 5 years. It's a show that comes out when I feel like it. And it's a choice that I made a while back, and it was a choice that I made out of wanting to figure out how to survive and keep moving forward through just some like really tough odds that I went through. And I think that a lot of people can really relate to that. And it's been wonderful now having a production company, because we're able to really dive forward and have that strength of character to make good things and have a good time, hopefully.
Well, so yeah, 2008 was that was a year.
Yeah.
That was a year. I could tell you a lot of stories that happened around that time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so podcasting it clearly has been good to you. Which is awesome. It's been good to me. I mean, I've been podcasting since May 2014, so not quite as long. But so when it comes to resiliency, what do you like? Break it down for me. What are you thinking that you need to be resilient
I
for
think
with your podcast?
I think one thing there's like a few different pieces that you really have to think about when you're creating your shows because the number one word that everyone talks about is pod fade. That's a huge one. There's a lot of talk about like a second big one is the conversations you're having just with your relationships in your life because the podcasting world can have a huge impact on your job as well as your just your personal life because it is something on top of it. We are a nation that really is like a side hustle nation. Everyone has a second job, has a second podcast, has a second this. And so it's really easy to see both of those areas heading into that third section, which is just being able to know what the amount that you need to take on is so that you can create good work and also still feel like at the end of the day you're having fun and that you're able to be a good person to everyone in those other two tiers. And I think that when we're looking at a time right now, and this is sort of where I started off my year, is like it's been like a huge growth for me in this last year. Yeah, Clay is all side hustles, and it's been a year of just like kind of taking all those pieces and bundling them together so that it doesn't feel so overwhelming. And throughout the time, it has at times felt overwhelming. And that's sort of why I wanted to kind of have that be my word this year. And it became a huge focus of it is like, is taking a look at the things that I've done to get through the worst times and seeing what other people have also done to be able to get through just ultimately really major challenges. And then, of course, this whole thing happened with the world we're in. And all of a sudden, we're feeling how to answer that question in a whole new way that is pretty intense.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely difficult right now for people to figure out like what's uh Clay. uh
I know. I
no,
think when I was like, what's his resiliency? He's doing a lot here. There's no
yeah,
kid
right.
there. He's not taking a day off.
No, apparently, Nick. No, I'm not taking a day. I think I took Monday off. I took Monday off for sure.
Good.
But no, I'm not afraid to be alone. I have a house full of people, so there is no alone time here except out here in the garage right now. Um, but no, I think finding resiliency in the like coming. I think a lot of that would come out of your why.
It
Would you
can.
agree?
It can come out of your why, but it also can come out of your how because it you can have it's about the nuggets that you're having. If your big reasons are like a big thing at the end, if it's all end focused, it's really hard to keep that going. But if you think about the how, like the little pieces that allow the foundation to be there, it's going to help rise to the why. So that you can have like just it's about some of those small layers as well. So like people who when you think about the obvious one, which is like the CEOs that make their bed every morning or that get up at 6. I'm not a morning person. I know that. I've tried and I've accepted and embraced the fact that my best self is not waking up at 6 a.m. every morning and then getting out there. Like I'm happy for people who do that. Me, I need a minute. I like to sleep in, right? So, but I know that
I
about
don't remember what that
myself.
was like.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I also have the freedom to do that because I don't have kids, and right now I haven't nannied for years, and so it's like a little bit different. But like that sense of when you have whatever your schedule is, figuring out what that would be. Like, what would be your why as far as the resiliency? Explain that for me.
What would be my why as far as resiliency? So for me, it's about it's always been about helping other people.
Yeah.
Ever since I was a kid, it was like, hey, how can I like take DJing and turn that into a way to open up doors for my friends and the people around me.
Yeah.
And when it came to podcasting, it was an immediate, like literally on the plane when I was formulating the name, and then the plane landed, and I registered the domain name, the Twitter handle, the Facebook page before we got to the rental car down in Disney. It was it was like, how do I inspire other people to do something greater than themselves, bigger than themselves? Um, and for me, even when as the show kind of transitioned from being more inspirational to business related and entrepreneurship related, um, it still is about helping people, right? It's about
Yeah.
going and finding ways to help, small business owners, entrepreneurs, grow their business so they can employ more people, right? So you can help
Right.
more families and amplify it that way. So that for me, like, there was a plenty of times where I could have just quit and it would have been like it could have been over and it would have been over, and there was times I wanted to quit, and there was times I wanted to change my show, and there was times I wanted all of that. But what I found was an opportunity, each of those times, to to pivot my thoughts into something
Yeah.
that was able to take it further, right? Rather than being like, well, if I
Yeah.
quit this show and I just do this instead, everything will be fine. And it's like, well, if I take that and I twist it and contort it and then put it out into the world as some, put that energy into my current show, that enables me to still continue to help more people. And real quick, before you answer, Jeni,
Yeah.
I just want to say we're not getting the comments in here. Like, I'm
I
seeing
know.
them on
Does
Facebook. I'm
anyone?
liking them. So Clay, for some reason, wherever Nick and Clay are
Oh,
watching it, their comments are getting through. So I don't know if they're watching like on my Facebook page or my personal profile, and
I don't.
apparently Tim
Okay.
is getting through too.
Oh,
What's up,
there's
Tim?
Tim.
But I want to say,
My watch
hi
party, I don't have
Larry,
any
Brent.
comments yet. So, oh, Terry
Yes,
Landers says here. So Terry, in case
hi
you're
Terry.
wondering, there's actually, if you go to not the watch party, you can watch on the share, which is right below on my page, and you go streamyard.com/Facebook, and then you can be in our comments. So if you found us there,
Yes.
you can move over. That's
Oh,
also
okay.
a
So
possibility.
Brent's saying it's on my personal page. That's how I'm getting
Oh,
it. Clay
okay.
said Facebook app,
Interesting.
but that probably still means he's probably seeing it on my personal
We'll
page.
see. We'll see.
But so I don't know if it's a restream thing
I don't
or
know.
what. But I mean, it's super frustrating.
Oh,
Oh, hey
Brenda's
Brenda,
here.
how you doing? Yeah, I mean, we have, and you know what? The other thing is it's not showing me how many people are live up in the top left hand corner, with us. But
Yeah.
if I go to restream, it's looking like 19, 20. Like we have about 20 people watching right
Okay.
this second, which is awesome. Thank you
Yeah.
all for joining us.
I've got four on mine. Yeah.
We're okay. You
Maybe
know
that's
what?
part of it. I don't know.
No, no, that would be separate because these are just for my platforms
Ooh.
that I'm showing. So we have like 24, 25 people. Anyway, that is
Hi.
absolutely awesome. And I decided to go a little bit earlier today because of the fact that I wanted to spend some time with my wife tonight.
That's fair.
So yeah. So anyway, so thank you, Jeni, for showing up an hour early
Of
to do the
course.
show. So I'm sorry.
So,
To go back to you.
yeah, I mean, I would say you brought up one of the huge words that is so important when it comes down to being able to, like, handle life's lessons is the word pivot. And everyone is using that word, but that word is the thing that's been. Oh, thank you.
I
You're my
know, right,
favorite too,
Clay?
Clay. Um
I like
uh
how it went from like, oh, my two favorite humans to like, I'm only here because of Jenny.
No, Clay and I met, and I mean, I think this is a good example. We met because we spoke at the PMX competition out in Philadelphia, and I was at that time really unhappy with my day job. I was working at Guitar Center, and before it was just necessary for me to get a job because everything that I was doing in media wasn't paying me enough to like make the bills, and where I was at like 2-3 years worth of experience in like radio, etc., was not getting me jobs like in farther than like a first interview for radio stations. And I was frustrated. And so I got into audio retail, and I was like, okay, I kind of stepped back from my show because at the time I was getting therapy for PTSD. And it was a time for me to be like, okay, we'll step back. But I was just like bummed out. I wasn't creating anymore. I was like down in the dumps. And then I didn't win the competition, and I was like, boo. And Clay's like, Jeni, you're amazing. You're so great. Like, don't feel bad. Like, feel good. And it was actually, and I ended up becoming really good friends with everybody at the PMX competition. And the last day I went and I saw, and I, you start changing your mental mindset. You start pivoting your brain because you can't sit in that place of feeling like crappy very long. You have a choice. I always say, like my dad and I, when we have those conversations, I'm like, I'll give myself an hour. Or if it needs to be a day, it's a day. And sometimes it's a little longer, but it is that sense of you have to get back on your feet. You have to figure out how you're going to pivot because like who cares in the long run? You look back on that. And at the end of it, it's like Clay ended up becoming one of my really, really good friends. I ended up realizing that I didn't need to be applying for radio stations and that I should do what I had been doing, which was more consulting and which was also to be producing podcasts for others. And I said, in 2 years, I'm going to be doing this full time. And I was doing it full time within 6 months, and it was really great. And now I also do audio consultations. Like the time at Guitar Center was not lost at all. And so Jeni, not jerk. So it was that moment of sort of saying like, well, what do I need to do to get to where I am? So there, I guess if you want to think about the why in that, it was like my why was that I had been like volunteering and trying to help people, and I just felt like it was just draining me, and I needed to focus on my like getting my spirit back up. And once that happened and I was able to put that time into it and like put that money aside and make those decisions, it was a really fast turnaround. And like it also kind of jumpstart that winter just because there was just a couple things that like just really came to a head, and I was like, I have to leave Guitar Center. This place isn't good on my spirit anymore. And but I feel like some of it was that moment of like getting on that stage and doing that thing. And even though it didn't go how I wanted it to, um, I'm learning every single time to be a little less defensive. And that is probably my number one thing is I'll just be like, what? And I'm always working on that one. That's not my like biggest strength, but it is something that I think that once I recognize that, it allows me to pivot more, because if I feel like I'm being a little like extra jumpy, I can kind of step back for a little bit and say, okay, let's give it some space and get back to where we want to be so that we can be helping people and that it's not about like my energy. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On a side note, is it, I mean, I don't want to say that it's a factory of sadness working at music or Guitar Center.
Oh, it is. It is.
But I mean, look, I have spent a fair share of money and time at Guitar Center. In my days, and getting to know the people that work at Guitar Center, and it definitely seems like a factory of sadness.
It's a place that is challenging in any retail. It's a very competitive environment. And I learned a lot from those boys. They pushed me hard. I had to learn. I had to stand up every single day, and I got a lot tougher. So I really like that I had those experiences. I have learned to kind of step back from that. Like I really, really started getting, because in order to get half of the leads, I had to push forward really fast, and I had to not be afraid to do that. And that wasn't always popular. And but it taught me something where I think before I was pretty, I would defer a lot, and that was something that I stopped doing as much. And now I probably could defer a little more sometimes, but it's okay.
Well, there's strength in being able to defer, right? There's strength in being able to not say something, especially when everyone else is like, I would have totally like gave that person a piece of my mind. Like that's, there's strength in that. There's leadership in that, to be able to take a step back and not, show your hand all at once all of the time.
Yeah. Because I'm like you, I will take on a million projects, and like this is sort of what was happening. Is I had a weekly narrative show that was going on. I guess it was the previous year that I can't remember exactly. It was the previous year that I'd taken a pause, and so at this point I was like a year and a half into it. And I'm like, I'm not even a real podcaster. I don't know. It was like sad. It was just like I haven't made music. I'm kind of performing. Yeah, it was pretty funny. But looking back on it, I see where that journey is, and you have, and that's the other thing. And when you're having resiliency, you have to remember that it's just like you are here, right now. And what you have right now is your tools, and you can use the tools you have right now. And if you want to get those other tools, you can develop them. Like plants don't just show up. Like they're growing outside right now and it's looking really pretty in April. And yeah, it's still kind of cold, but it's not like Antarctica. I don't know. I so like there's a step and you have to recognize and take a look up. So like one of the big exercises when in like cognitive behavioral therapy is like when you're sitting there and you're kind of like getting lost in your anxiety is like look up and then or look around your room and like make notes of the things around you. But you can do that not just even physically, but you can do that about your what's happening in your life if you're feeling frustrated. We'll make stock of the things that are going well, because if you are able to look at those things, it'll calm you a lot, because nobody's not doing anything. You're always doing something. And if it feels like if there's things that just need to take a pause, you have the right to say I need to step back from it. But if it's bringing you joy and it's not hurting other people in your life, it's not compromising those relationships, where we come back to those first three things, like that's amazing and really positive for your growth forward.
It is. And when I think about the times that I was challenged the most
Night, Clay.
in
Oh,
pod
sorry.
I'm sorry, what? Oh, I missed the Oh, good night, Clay. Good night. Take care. Hope you enjoy hanging out with the kids.
Yeah.
Um when I think about the challenges that I came across in podcasting, I think one of the biggest questions that I would always get asked that would constantly kind of push the buttons of like, am I doing the right thing? Like I left a family business and then a month later I'm starting up a podcast and I'm doing all these things, and was like, it's cool, so you have this podcast, like are you making any money at it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Yep.
like, yeah, but well, hold on a second. Like, if I was at school right now, you wouldn't ask me. The first question you wouldn't ask me is, "Are you
Mm-hmm.
making any money at it?"
Yep.
And that seems a bit ridiculous, right? So
Yeah.
why would it be any different? Um,
I
for somebody to
yeah.
feel like they could just say that, and it pushes you down in a sense of like, well, hold on, I gotta like maybe I gotta check myself, and I did that, and I don't know if you've done it at all, but like I call it treadmilling on zero, where you're like you're making money, you're paying the bills, you don't really know how you're paying the bills, but you're doing it. It's just you constantly feel like you're not actually getting ahead though, so you constantly feel like you're making zero.
Right. Totally. Because you kind of are.
Yeah, right. You're netting. Yeah, you're netting
Yeah,
not
you're
a
netting
positive.
zero.
You're just getting by, which
And then there'll be like a big leap forward. And then like sometimes the big leap forwards come with a canyon afterward, because and I get this because I have big projects that I do. I've always taken on big projects that are maybe that go on for a couple months. And then when that project is done, you're like, wait, where did like 25 of my hours a week go? So like in January, that was a good example. And like I remember when I headed into LA for Podcast Movement Evolutions, I was like really feeling frustrated, and like it all like came out. And by the time that, the next day hit, I started to feel better, because I think I finally like connected the dots to need what the next thing would be, because I didn't know. And that was like a little disconcerting, saying, well, what happens when you don't know what's next? Because if you are just constantly treading, you don't cut off the lines of new communications. You don't say, I'm not taking any work. I think there's points where I did that, but I've learned not to, because you just have to keep things.
is that like a patch?
I
I'm not
know. I
sure.
don't know what
Uh,
this is.
some
Is
kind
it
of
for my
emoji
owie?
that's not showing properly. I don't know,
I
Terry.
don't know. But Terry Landers is an aspiring podcaster. Uh,
Oh,
so yeah, that's what he wrote on my stream earlier. So yeah, I think that's the other part of it, is like when you're constantly going, it doesn't leave room for space. So I think that sometimes that prep side of everything, being able to have something that you do that's not like right now, I'm like cooking a lot. And it helps me because I can't leave my house. I can't see anyone, so I'm just mass cooking. And it at least gives me something to do outside of going for walks or watching TV or like playing dumb games on my phone, because like those are just taking away from the work. But I can't work all the time, otherwise I'm going to hit a burnout. And the burnouts, like, that's a burn. That's not good.
Oh,
You want to prepare.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, yeah, there was definitely periods of time where I was just constantly going and going and going. And it might seem like to some people that this past like week and a half or 2 weeks have been that way for me. With the exception of Monday, yes, that pretty much is the case. And um,
Yeah.
you know, I here's how the way I see it, right?
Hmm.
Is I'm not one to beat the hustle 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 gong all the time. I think that when the chips are down, you have to be willing to swing the bat. So like it's one of those things where it's like, am I going to work hard all the time? Yeah, but am I going to work work all of the time? No. And
Yeah.
but when things, when the chips are down and it's I got to get the thing done,
Yeah.
I'm going to swing the bat. I'm going to get it done. And I think that's, that's the key piece that a lot of people miss when they want to subscribe to the Gary V, idea that like, yeah, just like dedicate 10 years of your life. It's like go to jail for 10 years and then
Yeah.
come out of it. And if you still love yourself, then you'll have a bunch of money to do it. And that, and that's the goal. And it's like,
I think that's a problem that our society has, is that people are pushing themselves so hard. And I see this, and some of it is just the way that things cost. Like currently, I live in the Portland, Oregon, in the music scene. This is my world. And most of the people I know lost their jobs because they were working in the service industry so they could tour, or else they were working within the touring industry. And then all those jobs are gone. And they've been just pushing constantly. And now they're like, what are we going to do? And that's a really, really scary situation. And that was sort of where I was in 2009. Hi, Jessica. Because I was performing and I was teaching lessons, but their parents weren't signing up for more lessons, and I couldn't even find a coffee shop job anywhere. So I went back to grad school. Like, that was, you have to figure out how you're going to make those pivots. And but also, what set your plan for what's going to happen if like things really do hit the fan. And because they will, like, you think it's gonna, like, you think everything's like better, and something's gonna go wrong, and that's just a fact of life. And so it was things like, when I didn't stop until February, after the theft, after, like, losing one of my contracts, after all these like things that had happened, finding out about the surgery, which now can't even happen. But it was sort of saying like, we it was hard. But I think knowing that, like, knowing and having some knowns, finding some knowns that I could hold on to, like, helped me be able to, like, still be around people and like laugh and be a little less awkward and a little less, little more present and open. And I think that when all this happened, I felt like maybe this last week I started to feel it, but initially when it all started, I didn't feel like this wave of fear. I felt like really strong. I'd say this last week felt really sad, very, very
mm,
sad. But I never felt like I couldn't get through it. And I know a lot of people that are really scared about how they're going to get through it. And that's sort of where we want to try to find that base of like hope, without sounding too, yeah, the yearly hustle. Exactly. I forgot. I was like, where did I come from? I rambled. I'm like, I got a little lost. But people have this huge hustle, and they're just pushing themselves really, really hard. And then when it comes down to having this free time, they're like, this is great. What am I going to do? But there's no time to have a life. And that was something I started bringing back into my life. Is when I left Guitar Center, it allowed me to have a life, and I hadn't had one in a long time. And now it's nice. It's like I have friends. Most of them are online in the internet world. On the podcasting side, just
nothing wrong with that.
no, it's been great. I've really enjoyed it. Like, that's the coolest thing about being able to travel. I'll really miss these travels. That's something that for me is probably that's not a hard, I don't want to say it's a hardship, but like, it's one of the things that brings me joy. It's the thing that gets me moving forward, is having that nugget of getting out of town. And so I've got to find other nuggets, and that's okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are people that want to work like that, right? And there's people that are going to do that in that sense. But I am also of the subscription of like, just because you showed up for 12, 14 hours a day, how much of that was actual work and how much did you actually get accomplished? Because if you did,
Mhm.
you probably wouldn't have a lot to do after a few days. You
No.
know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
that's the same thing. It's like if you're talking about how hard are you working or like how efficiently are you working is so
yeah,
much of it because you can do a lot of things very, very quickly and then leave that time and prioritize it and it doesn't feel it's much work. And if you can find those hacks that really, really helps you or find out your system for certain things that allow you to have a support system. I mean, that can be your family, however, or right before we started, we were talking about cooking and me, I'm like freezing all this stuff. And Joe's like, I don't know how to cook, but my wife does, so like, it's even like your feeding needs it, like, it works within your family so that you can do that because you're not the one heading out there to cook because that's not your thing. And your wife supports you in that. Right.
yes,
So thank
yes,
you to Joe's wife. Like,
yes.
so but that's one way a family might do that. And like where you figure out how to get those things going so that each person can like, yeah, but even in your workday, like if you know that if you can batch certain things at once, just get those done with and have them ready. Or for me, it's templates. I'm like a template queen. I'm like, everything is templates. And the simpler I can do, or like making right now, I'm making all these videos, which are going out for the Free Friday series. And I mean, I'm using them and sending them to my launch clients, my clients too. And it's really nice to have that catalog because if they have a question, I mean, when they can watch that, but then we can also have our 101. So if they have a question, I'm like, this information's here. This is the write up on it. Like, go check it out. Or and I can also send it for other friends who have very similar things that have another perspective from it as well. And it just takes away all this repetitive conversation. And then there's a certain point where you just say no. So one of the big things this year was that a year ago, I was doing all these free consults and they were great. And I like doing things for free, but there's a point where it needs to switch over. And so what I ended up doing was free 15s and then like paid ones. And I ended up getting a lot of paid ones and it was really great. But I stopped doing just like quick answers like on an email, and partly just because it kept distracting me from my workflow, and so it's like, and if I get an email that way, I'm really not as quick to respond. I try to, I just forget. So it's good to give me an email, but you have to ping me back. But if I get somebody on a call, I can answer that in 15 minutes if it's an easy thing. Otherwise, I can, if they're like wanting something longer, we can do that. Or we're on that call and then I remember and I can send them something right away. And it's a quick move because I have, 5 to 10 clients at any point and they always come first. But if I'm responding to a bunch of people, I can't be as good to my clients as they deserve. So I need to know when I need to step back and get this organization. So like these last 2 weeks and with the Free Fridays, it's been kind of stressful because I hadn't anticipated on doing this. I just really wanted to do something for my community because like seen so many of my friends lose their jobs is like really, really hard because they don't have rent. They don't have backups. It's just really difficult to see that. And it's meant everyone's on edge and everyone's on edge for their own reasons. But that was for me a wake up call. And I was lucky enough to have work. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. But then I started to see my client side just teeter off a little. And that was sort of where the last couple of days, it was like, I need to pull it back together and just have a system that works for these, something simple that it's not, me doing a ton of research and making a new a PowerPoint every single week for a new topic. Cause I was like, at one point I'm like, I'm going to do that. And that was a terrible idea. Like, partly because it's just not maintainable and to have those relationships like when you see the relationships suffer. So and I found myself just getting a little more irritable around people and I was like, okay, if I'm getting irritable around other people, I'm being irritable to myself. And you have to making that choice to like put yourself at, yeah, just know yourself, get to know yourself. If you don't feel like you know yourself yet, just notice when you're feeling, notice when the hustle is pushing you as opposed to you pushing the hustle.
Yeah, I think being able to listen to your yourself, listen to your body, it's one of those things as a runner, like I'm
Yeah.
pretty in tune with listening to my body all the time. So it's 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 one of those things where it's like the mental health of being able to uh, put yourself in a position to not be overwhelmed and feel the pressure. So like an example
Under
of that
pressure.
is it's yeah, exactly. It was this week, this past weekend. I was feeling a tremendous amount of pressure leading up to those days the during the virtual conference this past weekend. And
Yeah.
like I mean I felt it like in my chest, like it was like a weight on my chest constantly. And I'm not even really that sure why, because like nothing felt out of my control or anything like that. I mean one thing I think I would have helped a lot is if I had actually taken my own advice and made a checklist. So I was just
Hmm.
constantly running through the checklist in my mind instead of like writing it down and being like check 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 check. Oh,
Yeah.
everything's cool. Like I'm not going to forget anything.
Yeah.
Um
As a
but
person with
yeah.
ADD, lists are a huge thing. I have so many of them, and like sometimes they get off, but I have them in like four different places. And for bigger projects, I really appreciate some of the online tools,
Mm.
like using Dropbox Paper or using Trello, that like keep all of those in order. And I don't always like live by those, but even just writing that down, really that check off, especially when it's a big project like what you did for the weekends. How many speakers was it? 40 or
Oh,
20?
it was over
40.
40. It was like
Yeah, that's a
20
lot of
plus each day.
coordinating. Yeah.
But fortunately, they were like, sending out the emails. Everybody, not everybody got the email, but everybody except one person showed up.
Oh,
So yeah, so we were like, I mean, it went. I was expecting a lot more people to not show up, to speak for what, like they just didn't receive the email or anything. So
yeah.
like, I reached out to a couple of people that when it was getting down to like, okay, there's like 3 or 4 minutes left in the talk, like, and they're still not in the room. Like, I got to figure that.
You did that
Um,
with me, actually.
did I? I did.
Yeah, no, you were
Okay.
like, "Hey, can you come early?" And I'm like, "My hair's still wet." Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was because the speaker that was supposed to be before you
Wasn't in there yet, but then
wasn't in there, and I
yeah.
emailed her, and she's not feeling well. I emailed her back again today to check in and see how she was feeling, but
Oh, no.
haven't heard back actually yet. But
Oh, I hope
but
she's
yeah,
okay.
yeah, I hope so. She's in Louisiana, and
Ugh.
she was potentially having like COVID-19 symptoms. So I don't
Uh,
know. I don't know.
I know.
I hope that she's all
I
right.
hope she's all right.
But so but I don't know. I just was really nervous that, like, I guess, um, I don't know.
But
I
you
don't know.
did it.
Yeah, I know. I knew I could do it, and
You
that was
but
the thing.
some
Like, it
that's the
wasn't
thing, it's
even
like under
scary.
pressure. It's like I had this hesitancy and there's this big project and I think I'm a little nervous about it because it's a bigger project and just on top of everything else, usually I would just whip it out and have it done. And I think finding the balance between the two, but it's just like I just got to do it because that's the thing. Once I get into it, I'm like, oh, I know how to do this. This is great, and then I just get really excited about it. And it's like there's that like tension of like, but what if I fail? And it's just this little like quiet thing inside of me that it's just like all the in the artist's way they talk about like I've only made it to like the third chapter ever, and so every time I redo it it's like what are your demons, and like I always go through it again. I'm like, yeah, those people that sent the bad, I need to go farther in that book. And that's so much of it is like we are trained from young ages to have these voices that are like sending us negative thoughts over and over. And in my meditation trainings I was it's always like I hear you, I let you go. I hear you, I let you go. But it doesn't make them go away. They still exist. They're going to be there. There are people that say they've never had that before, but I've had people who said that they've never had that before. And then 2 years later, they're like, guys, I have to admit, I have depression. You're like, yeah, you're a human. It's okay to be a human. Like, that's all right. Like, you have permission to do that.
I want to give a quick shout out to Jock. What's up, Jock? Thank you for saying you guys are amazing.
Oh, thank you. I
I
don't,
would love to learn how to do a podcast. Yes.
yeah.
Well, you're in the right place.
Yeah.
Being in the indie pod group is definitely a good start for you. Um, Before we go on, I just got to give a quick read to our September event, September 24th to the
Ooh.
26th, 2020. Assuming that it can
Assuming.
happen in person, but there is a contingency plan to do it virtually. Obviously, we've already done it once, so it wouldn't be that big of a deal to do it again.
No, in Philly.
Uh
Philly's fun.
Yeah, well, it's outside of Philly, so it's in South Jersey. It's about 20 minutes from the airport, so
Okay.
it's very convenient from the airport. And we get together Thursday, Friday, Saturday. There's you get like included in your ticket's going to be lunches on Friday and Saturday.
Nice.
You are going to get there's like after parties on Friday and well Thursday and Friday night will there'll be after parties or like mixer type events. There's free professional headshots included by my girl Jeanette, who's been doing
Wow.
it since day one, since year one, back in 2015. That's included in your ticket. You get an event T-shirt included that people like fawn over. I'm not wearing one right now. I'm wearing a Mickey shirt right now, but people literally. I mean, Emily Prokop. If you don't believe me, ask Emily Prokop. She will
I
tell
love
you all about how
Emily.
much she loves these shirts. The event shirts that we put out. Of course, it includes your badge, and it'll include a virtual ticket, so you get all the talks in demand. What we do is different than a lot of other conferences. We not only do we feed you, but it's one track, so you're in the room with the Dave Jacksons, Jessica Kupfermans, Emily Prokops, Joe Pardos of the world, all rubbing elbows, all getting into the like creating inside jokes throughout the entire event and all
It's
of
the
that.
hallway
So
track, but you're in there.
yes, exactly. It is the hallway track, but you're in it the
I
whole
like that
time.
about the small conferences. Like that was I had so much fun, and I really the podcast editors conference that Steve did was so fantastic, and it was so nice to hang out with everybody in person. We had a really great time, and that was great because it was one track. We were all in the room, and then like it was intense, and then we there was a lot of like hanging out post. Like there was plenty of hanging out post, and it was really fun. But it's that small that intimacy. It like really felt like hanging out with friends. And I've heard great things about Indie PodCon, but I haven't catched it.
Oh,
Catched it.
catched it, caught
I
it,
ain't, I ain't,
pod
I ain't
catched
done
it.
catched it. Oh God.
So yeah, so we do. Jacques says I want to be in the room with you guys. I
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, you definitely
Get in
do.
there, Jack.
It's
Jock.
so right now it's $199, but you can get 10% off your ticket if you use offer code IPP when you go to check out at indiepodcon.com/register. Yeah,
Oh.
so there, I mean, there's
Hi,
just
Larry.
so much. Oh yeah,
Oh, there's Chris Curran. I'm going back through.
oh, you're
Yeah,
going back
hi.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
because I hadn't streamed on the Facebook yet.
yeah.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, so there's just so many things included. We do have you heard about the Creative Podcast Workshop?
No.
No, you haven't heard about it. So
Tell me, tell me
so
about
so
it.
you, Jenny, you team up with three other podcasters.
Okay.
You get an envelope with 6 words in it,
Oh,
and you have
yes.
20 minutes to craft a podcast
Oh, that's fun. I
using
do
those
that.
words.
That sounds really cool. That's actually like a portion of my workshops. I'm always like, you and another person sit together, like, and I have them like do that. But that sounds really fun because it brings in sort of like that random prompt. I like doing that
It
in song. I
is.
like doing that in songwriting. That's really
Oh,
fun in songwriting too. Is like I'll
I like
I'll
what
get a
you were
band of
like.
a few words. Yeah, it's not like connected to this interface, but yeah, that's cool. I love it. So
Yeah.
that's part of any podcon.
Yeah, so that's one of the workshops. We've done that since year one. And
Have some of those shows continued to actually become a show?
sadly, to my knowledge, no, but some of them are absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
Matthew Passy is the most winningest contestant of it.
Okay.
It's he almost won 4 of the 5 years. This year he fell short a little bit because we have judges, and the judges judge the podcasts, and the winning team wins usually a prize pack that includes like a ATR 2100 microphone. Like Audio Technica has sponsored it a couple of years. Some other companies have sponsored it, and yeah, so we try to do something that enables people to like get the microphone and have a good time and get to learn and get out of their comfort zone and have to be forced to talk to somebody else that they may not know. And it was in past years, like the first year we did it up on stage, so everybody had props. I like literally went to the dollar store, bought trash bags, and then bought props from the dollar store, put them in the trash bag, and that was your items to
Oh,
use.
that's so fun. It's like 24-hour festival for podcasts, but in
Yes.
an hour.
Yes. So it was, so it went from being on stage to in front of the room with props to just the words and to the back of the room. And then last year we made it so that you had to record your show. So you had 20 minutes and then you had five or I think it was 25 minutes. And in that 25 minutes, you had to record your 5-minute podcast. But that also includes like music, artwork, outro, intro, everything. Are you frozen? You looking pretty frozen there. Am I frozen? Maybe I'm frozen. Oh no. Jeni, are you there? Oh no. Oh, I think her camera stopped. Oh, that's a shame. Okay, so I'm sure she'll be coming back into the room. But yeah, so that's one of the things that makes us different uh than some of these, other conferences. That's one of our difference makers. Aside from being in the same room and as everybody else that's there. So yeah, oh, she dropped from the thing now. Okay. So as soon as Jeni gets back in, we will pick back up. Oh,
Okay.
there you are.
Yeah,
I lost you there.
morning where it hit the mark, and then it like my internet was like, we don't feel like it anymore. So I don't know what's up with that. I live out in an ADU, so additional dwelling unit. It's in the garage, and so it's far away. And then
Mm.
we just got a link, like so that we can link between the two because this desktop, like this is the other thing that made this week frustrating was the laptop just really has not wanted to work. But I've barely been home and for the last several months, so it didn't really bug me. But now that I'm like here, well, I mean, I was already going to be back home. Like this was already like I wasn't going to be traveling anymore. But it still is not perfect. So I am, yeah, it's back now.
But
So
anyway, yeah. So that's what
it looks fun.
it's one of some of the differentiators of Indie PodCon versus other
Cool.
conferences, and we have an attendance cap of 400 attendees this year. Generally we get a little over 100, but now that I have a team around me to help like facilitate a lot of things,
Yeah.
we're willing to take on between 3 and 400 podcasters in the same room. So yeah, so I'm pumped. I can't wait. And like I said, worst case scenario, it will be virtualized. I will definitely be still implementing those like the virtual or not the creative podcast competition workshop into it so that people can like jump into a room, maybe like using
That
Zoom or
sounds
something like
fun.
that. So I'll figure it out. But anyway,
That's
that's
cool.
that. So if you want that, if any of that sounds fun, go pick up your ticket, save 10% off using offer code IPP at indiepodcon.com slash
Hello,
register.
Cheryl. That sounds really
So
fun.
Jeni,
Yeah.
so you alluded to business on your end
Yeah.
possibly slowing up due to
It hasn't as much as I thought it would. I actually have a new launch show that's coming up, a new like Latino podcast based out of Portland. I've still had some consults. Uh, I think like a lot of my shows have actually stayed on. A client that I thought was about to onboard and then wasn't still's here. So I'm excited because things have still been staying consistent there. I'd had kind of like a drop back because I had those larger projects end in January. So there's still like more time to fill, but it hasn't been the ramsack that I was like afraid of 2 weeks ago. And so bringing on more is still in the books. I think I've just been trying to kind of settle into the new normal, and I'll be starting to kind of take on more consults because I like doing consultations. Those are the most fun. I like doing launches. Those are pretty fun. And then like I think it's time for like yeah, it's fun to be doing stuff for Gritty Birds again. Like that's kind of where these like free Fridays and stuff. It's really neat to be able to have like a new direction with that because that's been overdue. And more artist interviews. So we'll see where things head. But it hasn't been slow. I would say there's been like less like people posting, "Hey, I need to hire somebody," who are looking for somebody on some of the higher end rates, but at the same point, the people who are willing to pay are usually uh, are just willing to pay. So it sounds strange, but the editors are doing okay. There's a lot of shows that are going to cut at times, maybe some of their staff, but yeah, I haven't lost a contract.
well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So thumbs up, two thumbs up for that.
Yeah.
Uh But I think one thing you said there about the people that are willing to pay are going to pay, and for anyone who's new to the online selling anything kind of game, like the hardest thing to do is go from $0 to 1 cent, and once you can commit them to digging into their PayPal or their Venmo or their the credit card or be
Yeah.
making a payment online, they're opened up to so much more than just a penny. So, you know,
Totally. Because like I'm helping take their time off because especially when you think about being online all the time, it means that a lot of people are still having they still have families, they still have their jobs on top of everything else. And it may seem like they might think they have more time, but they're in the same space as their partners. They're like there's all these other issues and they still need that if they've been having the benefit of an editor or a producer, they were benefiting from it and they're going to continue benefiting from it and being able to, focus on other sides. And there's some people who will say I have to cut that, but I have not had that yet from my experience. We're still early. I can't judge what's going to happen. And like I said, sort of this resiliency side is like, what's happening right now? What are the wins now? Like, what are the cool things that are happening at the moment? And that's sort of the things that I'm celebrating. And they're the things that help me be like, okay, good. I can sleep tonight. I'm going to be able to work right now. And just, having that confidence and faith in the moment. And when something goes wrong, just taking a moment, feeling the feelings about it and not letting it rule your world, because it's really easy to get down a negative track and to like see the darkness and everything. And it's really easy to do that, but we get choices. We get choices to make decisions to have better days. Not to say that that's easy, but you can at least try.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I subscribe to the universe will provide theory. What universe being, however you want to take that, but it just seems like every time things have gotten so bad that like I didn't like there was a lot of times where I didn't know if I was going to be able to make the mortgage or car payments or money was like super tight, and it just seemed like then a client would come out, somebody would reach out and be like, hey, I got this friend that's like looking at doing this website, or I'm looking at this friend that's doing a podcast, or
Yeah.
a business client, or something would
Yeah.
happen, and the universe would provide.
Yeah, it's the mountain in the canyon, like
Yep.
all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, this is cool." And then you're there and you're like, "Oh, we're having this weird so on a mountain you've got the sunny side and then you've got the side where there's all the rain." But like on the rain, there's a lot of growth on that side too.
Well, I
So,
think I think the other thing is um the or keeping our ability to be happy with what where we are at and what we have
yeah.
is tough, because like the skepticism of like, oh no, this is too good, like there's no way that things are going to stay this good, and they might not even be that good, but maybe just where you were was like that bad that you're like, oh no, everything's perfect. It
Yeah.
can't be perfect, and I'm gonna, like, you're like the toddler, or not the toddler, but you're like the
No.
little, like the 5-year-old on the bicycle, and you're gonna like lose your balance.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that one. I think for me as being someone who's having gone through some trauma, it was for a while it was like there was points and this was something we worked through over it, which was that sense of like it really isn't that, there's more growth, there's more positivity, and not feeling like the small things are it. And sort of like not necessarily getting excited about everything, but being like, yeah, that's cool. And then like sort of realizing that's a norm, like letting that normal feel into it so that when it is something really huge, you really honor it in a different way. But also just having things just knowing that good things can be normal, just normal. Yeah. Like things go well sometimes. Yeah.
What's up, June? June says,
Oh,
most
good
of
to
the
see you,
world
June.
wonders why we, as such a prosperous nation, will
Yes.
live to work instead of working to live. I would say that that's probably in the same vein as the eating to live versus living to eat. Kind of like we as a people just I don't know. I don't know. What do you think, Jenny?
Uh, that's I think it really depends on the person. I think it sometimes can depend on the personality too. Like what kind of person, like where you live for it. Like I know people who just like don't care about food and are they have different priorities when we come down to the how or the why. And I think you can sort of train yourself that way. But I know just some people are just like more naturally contented, like as well. But I also do notice like any of my European friends are just like, why are you not taking a siesta? Like, please, please, please take a break. Like, come on, people. Like, why? And they're a lot happier. And they've got universal health care. So,
That I think plays a bit. Well, it's not even necessarily that it has to be like universal health care, but just
right.
that to have health care that's not tied to an employer, I think
Yeah.
would go a long way in creating more opportunities for people to go and do the thing that they want.
Yeah.
Right? Like
100%.
I
I'd
could
say that's
save
a
up a
huge
bunch of
fear.
money and then like quit my job, but that's not going to help the healthcare thing. That's going to like drain that money like suit to like way faster than me like eating ramen
Yeah.
noodles instead of eating, food like real
Yeah.
food.
If you don't have that going on, unfortunately, it means that you probably shouldn't go rock climbing and you shouldn't like right now nobody should be doing anything like dangerous. Like
I've been
but it's
telling
the
my
same
kids for the last
like
2
don't fight.
weeks, stop climbing on the couch because someone's going to end up in the hospital and
It's
we
you
don't
know
want to be
that.
there.
Yeah, exactly. But like that's one of the things that happens when you don't deal with health insurance is like you're just like, well, I guess I won't. Like I quit snowboarding, I think 15 years, like 12 years ago, but it's because I didn't have insurance when I was in Seattle, and like
Mm.
I've broken my arm before doing that, so I'm like that won't happen. I love doing it, and so it's a huge part of like what makes people feel calmer. Like if you know just whatever security is, whatever security it is for you, and I think that there's not a lot of security for a lot of people and that sort of pushes that like you're living to work and but also not necessarily doing jobs that you're excited for or being able to feel the hope to be able to get an education and there are options for that, but I think a lot of people have just gotten a little despondent in the times, and so it's harder to build that resilience. It's harder to sort of like look outside the box and say that it's not the end of the world. And that's a kind of it can feel like a mean thing to say, but it's one of those things that if you're saying it, it's a friend, it's an honest thing. It's like I'm just handing you the information. Like I'm telling you this, and I just want you to hear it. You don't have to agree with it. Just hear it. Think about it a little bit later, and just put it in your head and you can walk away. I don't mind if you disagree, right? And that sense of hope can exist. And I realize that I come from a place of privilege, but like it's been from a lot of building back. And I sit here today saying, hey, like I'm doing a job that I love, and I appreciate that. And hopefully it's not you don't have to just be in an online world hopefully to do the jobs that you love. Like hopefully this is not it, because not everybody like needs to be working online. Right now they do. So let me rephrase that. Right now everyone needs to be working online, but it is a good time to sort of think about what you want later, and how maybe you can figure out how to be a part of society as it shifts. Because the 1918 flu existed, and then there was World War I, and those were a rough few years. And then the economy, like things are going to happen, and we are in this point. We will not be inside our houses forever, and it's hard to imagine that because we don't know how long it's going to be, and that's a really huge scary thing. Um, but there can be hope. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
no,
can be okay.
yeah, I totally can. Though I will say, if I was if this was back when I was like 13, 14 years old again, I would have absolutely loved this. This would have been amazing because I could have just sat around and played video games all day. Speaking of which,
That's
totally
funny.
off topic.
Oh yeah.
I do not understand why they did just not just call it summertime and let the kids be done.
Oregon did.
Oh, they called it so they didn't. They weren't like, oh, we're gonna do the digital. Well, it's Oregon. Why like they're not
Yeah,
trying to be
they
digital.
were like they were like it can't be equitable because if you can't get devices into all the homes, a lot of the kids aren't going to be able to have access to it. So that's not fair to people who don't have access. So are we just going to send a computer to everyone's house when a lot of these families don't have that?
Yeah.
So they made a choice to do that, and then so they've pretty much canceled school. They've canceled school for the rest of the year. I feel so bad for the seniors.
Yeah, that part does suck.
One of I
I'm
saw
not
one of
gonna.
my I saw one of my senior friends yesterday, and I was so she was like, I got my prom dress in the mail today. Like it was like, oh man.
Well, I heard there
I don't mean to
was.
laugh. I laugh when I'm uncomfortable about something. I'm
Yeah,
not laughing at her.
yeah, no, me too. You're in good
Oh,
company.
like I laughed when Tom Hanks got sick, and they're like, "Why are you laughing about Tom Hanks?" I'm like, I swear."
Because just we're sad about it, but I'm glad he was able to recover.
Yeah,
I mean, I seen there was some photographers that were going around and doing prom pictures out in front of houses for people,
that's
like
cute.
with their prom dresses and stuff, and
Aw.
that is cool. I mean, I guess yeah. I mean there's a handful of like years that this would really stink for. But I will say this: like, there's some older people I know that have chosen to continue to go out and like continue to like go to the supermarket every day or like go to get their hair cut, and it's like. You're probably old enough to have known of somebody in your family that died from Spanish flu back in 1918.
Oh
Like,
wow.
don't you
Yeah.
think maybe you might not have known that person because you're not like 120 years old or whatever, but
That was
don't
the
you
year my
think like the lessons learned, like I don't know, or maybe at the point you just don't care,
I
like
think
you're
it
like,
kind
yeah,
of comes
whatever.
I think it comes down to the part where when you were when like the old people don't want to leave their house because there's a thing and they're like, this is my life, this is how I live it, I don't want to live it separately. And we actually my good friend Rosalie, every Thursday I get together with her and these other ladies. They were Quakers. They're really sweet. They're like over 60, and I just meet up with them and we have an IPA. It's really fun. And we convinced Rosalie that she needed to stay in, and so we convinced her. Like she's like, I'm fine. And it became just a community concern, to just be like, hey, let's be safe and figure out what that is. And, but like my parents, they are both over 70, and they both have they're still in Arizona, but they'll be heading back to Iowa in a couple weeks, and they're going to just do a straight
Mm.
shot and they'll sleep in the car one night.
Wow.
And they just want to go home, but they still walk around the park. They live in a double, like a over 50 community, and I think there's certain places in the US that are still less shut down. Like here, it's pretty
Yeah,
shut
there's actually
down.
kind of, I don't want to say alarming number, but there's a lot of places that are not
Yeah.
locked down, if you will, which is not it's not great. It just means that everybody else might have to end up staying that
Yeah.
much longer in
I
their
was
house.
I was out the last 2 days running groceries, and it's really weird. I went to like Fred Meyer's, which is like a Kroger's, and it's at their company, but on the West Coast, and
Hmm.
that was I don't know, that was a little uncomfortable, to be honest. It was a little too much people just not quite keeping distance, and so I definitely that was weird. And then today I went to a New Seasons, which was like really which is a Portland based brand, and they were very very good about all this stuff, but it's still there are still a lot of people in the streets, and so you know recognize that, and you have caution, and if you're not scared, then good, I guess. Just I wish you health. I don't know.
I wish the people around you health
I
because
wish,
you could
yeah,
be spreading it. That's
I
the
mean, where I wish
you
the
know.
people, like, it's frustrating being like, I'm completely isolated, and me and my friends are all making a decision. My friends here are like in person, like the people I'm like the guy I'm dating, like all of it. Like it's like we are making this very conscious choice, and then people are going out, and you're like,
Yeah, I'll just wait. I'll sit
I'll
here.
just wait here. Oh, I know. Actually, this reminds me of an elementary school teacher, because you would sit there, and that was one of the best ways you could get the kids to do something. Is they'd be all like, they're just like, I'm just gonna sit here. You wanna have your day like this? Go for it. Like we're just not gonna go to recess. And then that is a really really quick way for the kids to be like, no, Jimmy, stop that. Okay, the silent game begins immediately. It works.
I I bet. I bet. Well, Jenny, we got to wrap it up
Yeah, this was
here.
fun.
Yes, for time purposes, I try not to go too much over an hour.
Well, I've had a blast. It's fun.
Thank
It's
you.
fun
Me
signing
too.
up for something this far out, and then finally being. And it was April Fools because we were like, "Oh, this is perfect." And I'm like looking at all the
Yeah.
dates. We just opened up a couple more, and I'm like, "That's the date. That's the date." I just didn't expect it to be like this silly.
So somber and silly, lots of S words.
Yeah. But it was cute. This is cute. This is cute. My friend has his cat, and it's the cat's month now. He's an April cover boy.
Oh, that's awesome.
Sorry. Anyway, it was just kind of funny. I just had it in front of me, but I was excited. I was like, April 1st, the calendar finally gets to have the cute cat. It's the little things. It's the little things. You got to have those nuggets.
It is, and that's can help us keep moving forward. And I hope everybody watching and listening is continuing to keep on keeping on while doing so in the confines of their living space.
Yeah.
For the sake of everybody else's health. If
Fun
nothing
fact,
else.
I think like every artist has a song. I have a song called Moving On. And I feel like every artist has like a keep on keeping on, keep on moving on, keep going. You've got this. Like, I don't know, there's got to be just a playlist that's just like keep going. You got to hold on to what you've got. So that's my note for you today. So thank you, Joe. Appreciate you.
Oh, I appreciate you, Jenny.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and thank you for so much. Thank you for so much. Thank you so much for being a part of this past weekend.
It was fun.
It really was a memory for me for sure.
Yeah, that was cool.
And I'm so happy that so many people loved it and have been still to today are still reaching out to thank me. So I again, I did it for all of you to be able to have something to inspire you to go and do more. Maybe not
do more.
30 hours a day more, but do more in general.
Just do more.
Yeah, so and if you want to check that out, you can go to indiepodcon.com/virtual. It's still available, all the recordings for the next, I don't know, 4 or 5 days or something like that. And then after that, you can go and buy it as part of the MapCon 2015 to 2018 pack, where you get 4 years of podcast conference video and audio for just $33 with offer code virtual. So go to indiepodcon.com/bundle, pop in virtual, and you will get over 44 hours with this new virtual conference that just went live in there. I got to change the name from MapCon 2015 to 2018. It's like 2015 to 2018 plus a virtual conference in 2020. It's not very sexy in the marketing, but I'm thinking of just changing it to like the Indie PodCon lifetime bundle or something like that.
Yeah. I like that you've changed it to Indie PodCon, because MapCon, I was like, I live in the West Coast. Sorry.
So, I would get an email like once a year, sometimes 2 or 3 up to a year, people saying, I live on blah, blah, blah. Can I come to this? And I'm like, yes, anyone can come to this. Like, that's why I love, even the first year we had people from the Southeast come, from Florida, Atlanta. Brent Basham was at the first one.
The knowledge is the key.
Yes.
Like, dude, you could hire me, or you could literally just watch all those videos. I'm not even joking. And like, it'd be like, you don't have to. You just have to watch 44 hours of a video and then apply it to your own show, and like magic. Like, cool. Do that.
Yeah. You find the seeds that you specifically apply, speak directly to you, and then plant those seeds. And but you gotta be willing to put in the time and the effort, right? You can't just or you could shortcut it and hire somebody and get the time that because that's like you're continuing to get time forward. I'm sorry, you said no?
Yeah. Oh no, I thought it was breaking up again. And I was like, no, we're good.
Oh no. Anyway, so this episode has been brought to you by Podbean Live, which Podbean's live stream is a unique platform for turning your podcast production into a live show, and is open to any podcaster on any hosting site. Easily invite multiple co-hosts and guests to join the live stream, earn money from live show ticket sales, and get listener rewards, and engage your audience in new and exciting ways. Ready to get started?
Yes.
Yeah, right? Sign up today at podbean.com/live. That's PODBEAN.com/live. I have been honored to have you on, Jenny. It's been a blast.
Been a
I'm
pleasure, Joe.
glad. We'll definitely have to do this again at some
Yeah,
point.
I'd love to.
Maybe next year's April Fools will be a
April
little
Fools.
less
It's like
somber.
this Jenny's Day. I believe I have hope. I
I
have
I
hope.
do. We will get through this. Thank
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
Bruce. Thank you, Bruce. I
Thank you,
appreciate
Bruce. That's
that.
my dad's name.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So he's also the hero of New Jersey's name.
Bruce. Yeah.
Bruce Springsteen.
I've seen him play.
So, all right, everybody. I hope you and your family stay safe. I'll see you next Wednesday. I think with who's my next guest? Doc G from Hamilton Radio. That should be a lot of fun.
Cool.
He speaking of Jersey, that's in Jersey as well. Hey, what's up, Michael
Nice.
Wolf? All right, we are out of here. Everybody, take care. Thanks again,
Bye,
Jenny.
guys. See you later.